Okay, we are live, and ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us today. This is the Benchwarmers podcast. Today, I have a special treat for everyone. We are going to be talking about something that ended exactly a month, and I believe it was a month and 7 days ago.
Yep.
That being the World Cup. With me, I have my boy here, Sammy, my next door neighbor. He lives right across the street, and he was gracious enough to come on and share his experience of being in Qatar during the World Cup. Sammy, how are you doing, buddy?
I'm doing all right, man. How are you?
Um, I'm good. I'm good. Been looking forward to this with you. I wanted to just bring you on, everyone. This is Sammy's debut, I would say, in the virtual realm. So I really appreciate you coming on and spending this time with us.
Yeah, no problem. I appreciate you giving me the platform, man, because I know we spoke about this earlier. We've been talking about it for a while. You were
Yeah.
like, Sammy, we need to do something on YouTube together. Like, we need to get together, talk about some football. And
Yeah.
it's been a while. We've been talking about it, but finally it comes to fruition. And man, now I appreciate you giving me the opportunity to just come on here. And you know me, man. If there's anything to do with football, which for all the US viewers that are on here, I mean soccer, but like Neil and I, we call it football because that's the name of it. That's what we think it is. But
Yeah.
yeah, no, thank you for giving me the opportunity to come on here and speak. Because anytime we're talking about football, I'm always open and down for it. So
Absolutely, absolutely, and thank you so much. I know it took a little bit of time, but we're finally here, and I see we already have Judge Dredd, the law. He's not so Judge Dredd is actually one of my good friends. We have a group chat together for Arsenal Analyze, and you should know that those guys, Jake and Keith and those guys. So, speaking of which, Jake is on as well. Big up to the guys in the chat. So, Sammy, right off the bat, I just wanted to, share with us what has it, what was it like being in Qatar during the World Cup?
it was surreal, man. I mean, for someone like me who has been a football fan like my whole life, it's my favorite sport, just really passionate about it. It was honestly the best way to describe it was an honor for me just to be there. It's something that, so many football fans, they dream of, being able to attend these major tournaments. And, I've always dreamed of going and watching a game in Europe, going watching, a club football game,
Mhm.
whether it be Premier League game, Bundesliga, whatever the case may be. Like I always dreamt of going and watching those games. But World Cup's on a whole
Mhm.
different level, man. Like for me, at least, like the World Cup is, what we call here in the United States the creme de la creme of football. It's the premier tournament. So for me to get an opportunity just to go and attend a World Cup game, not just any World Cup game, but the game that I attended was the semifinal matchup between Croatia and Argentina. Just to get that
Mhm.
opportunity, just to go and watch that game, to see the GOAT Lionel Messi play live. I mean, it was just an honor, honestly, like for me. So,
Mhm.
my experience, that's really the best way to describe it. It was just surreal and it was just an honor. And I'm just fortunate I got the opportunity to go over there and actually watch games live and kind of take in the atmosphere of the World Cup over there. Like it's just like it's been already a little over a month, and it's almost like I can't actually believe that I attended a World Cup match and went to a World Cup because I just never thought I would ever do that. Albeit
Mhm.
the next World Cup's going to be here in the States, but still,
Right.
it's just something you don't think about. Like you just don't imagine. Like you dream of it, but you don't know if you're actually gonna like end up doing it. And for me to be
Right.
able to get that opportunity, like as a really passionate football fan, and you know me, man. Like we've known each other for a while, and every time we're outside
Mhm.
we're talking football, and we talk about it for a long time. Like we just get deep into conversations, talking about the games, tactical analysis, whatever the case may be. Like me and you are both the same. Like we're just so passionate about the game. So for me to
Mhm.
just get an opportunity to go, it was honestly like a surreal experience and an honor for me.
So and that's interesting to note because you said that you were actually able to witness the GOAT. So now there's no conversation to be had anymore. It's all 100%. Lionel Messi now is a GOAT. There's no conversation to be had between him and CR7.
For me, yes, I think Lionel Messi is the GOAT. I always said that he was the GOAT even before he had a World Cup trophy with Argentina, even before he won the Copa America with Argentina
Hmm.
in 2021. Like I always felt like he was the GOAT just as a player. I mean, look, even if let's say he never won a trophy with Argentina and Ronaldo obviously he already won the Euros with Portugal back in 2016, like even without any trophy with his country, like at the end of the day, if
Hmm.
you look at him as an individual player and what he achieved for Barcelona, the amount of trophies that he won, and what he offers to the game, like for me, Ronaldo was always a big talent, even from his time in Sporting. Like a lot
Hmm.
of people knew, like even when he was a teenager, like this guy was going to be something special. But he was one of those players who just really had to put in like had to have a really good work ethic and put in really like a lot of work into it to get to where he is today and to be considered, one of the greatest players of all time, which he is, by the way, without a doubt. But
Hmm.
Messi, he's one of those players. He just has that God-given talent. He's one of those players who, even back from before when Barcelona signed him and they were interested in him and they were trying to bring him from Argentina to Barcelona, you just knew he had that special something. You just knew he just had that special talent. And people knew from when he was in La Masia, when he was in the youth academy, like they knew this guy was going to be one of the greatest players ever. Like I
Right.
think you kind of knew, like he just had that special something in him, that magic in his game, his ability to dribble,
Hmm.
the fact that he had that low center of gravity, and he was just a similar player to the late and great Maradona in terms of his build
Hmm.
and his style of play and what he offered to the game. Like he's just a special player,
Hmm.
and I just think if you combine not only his ability to finish, right, because he's an incredible finisher, there's no doubt about that. I think Ronaldo's actually an even better finisher than Messi. I think even Erling Haaland, by the time he ends his career, he will probably turn out to be considered a better finisher than Messi. But with Messi,
Hmm.
it's not just about his finishing; it's his creativity, his ability to get assists. Which, if you even compare Ronaldo to Messi, it's not even close. Just look at the numbers, and Messi's by far and large, like he racks up way more assists than Ronaldo throughout his career. His goal scoring is, in terms of his goals to game ratio, goals per 90 minutes is, and I don't know
Hmm.
exactly what it is, but it's probably around the same thing. Like there's not like a huge discrepancy there. And the
Yeah.
fact that like, okay, he's already won trophies with Barcelona before. I think he has like what, 4 Champions League trophies. I don't know how
Yeah.
many league titles with Barcelona. He already has a league title with PSG, last
Yeah.
season. Probably will win another one this year potentially. I know it's close right now in the league, but
Hmm.
like they probably will end up winning it.
Yeah.
If you take into consideration all the trophies that he already won at club level,
Hmm.
on top of the fact that like he's already won now for his country, both from a continental standpoint and the most prestigious
Worldwide.
tournament of all time, the World Cup.
Hmm.
And not
Hmm.
only that, not only did he do all that, but he was a key figure and probably the most important player within the team in each of the team in each of the tournaments and trophies that he won. Like at the World Cup, I don't think I've ever seen a World Cup or watched a World Cup where a player, just an individual player, had that good of a tournament. And for me, Messi,
Hmm.
like the tournament that he had like what, 7 goals, 3 assists, and
Yeah.
just the impact he made for his country, and just like the fact that he was able to like have those moments of magic to just like kind of like get the team over the line when they needed it. I mean,
Yeah.
for me, yeah, like Messi is the greatest of all time, but I still think you can potentially make an argument. But for me, like, yeah, Messi's the GOAT. And then with,
That's
with the late and great, sorry to cut you off, Neil, but just to add
no
another,
words.
with the late and great, Pele and Maradona, I don't want to speak on behalf of what they offered to the game because obviously they, were incredible players as well. But again,
Yeah.
I didn't grow up watching them, so it's hard for me to speak about them. So for me, when I think of
Hmm.
like the GOAT conversation, it's between two players only,
Right.
Ronaldo, as in Portuguese Ronaldo, and Messi. And for me, yeah,
Hmm.
Messi's the GOAT. Like there's been so many incredible players that I've watched over the years, but yeah, Messi's the GOAT for me.
Absolutely. Okay. Okay. So I'm happy you kind of transition into that. You know, there was a lot of um I would say doubt casted on the host nation. Also a lot of controversy behind it. Initially, when Qatar won the bid to host the World Cup, and you can take a look at it. It's on Netflix right now, where they show this whole story of the corruption behind FIFA and
Yep.
those the heads at the time. Um, and even just as the build-up was happening for the World Cup, there was a lot of pulling and tugging, no bid to be sold, kind of a couple of days before the kickoff was about to happen, and it's a nation that is not known for football, and you know, in your opinion, how many like what? So how many World Cups have you witnessed so far?
I've been watching the World Cup since 2006. So the first World Cup I
Okay,
watched was the one that was hosted in Germany.
okay, so 2006. So between 2006, then 10, then 14, then 18, and now 2022, in your opinion, like, what was your impression of Qatar being the host nation of the World Cup?
I mean, I think they did an amazing job. I mean, just being there and seeing just how organized they were, how clean the country was. I mean, it's a country that
Hmm.
I've been to a few different places, and obviously I've been to
Hmm.
different places in the U.S. and I've never been to a
Hmm.
place in the U.S. that's nearly as clean as Qatar. Like Qatar, like the streets, everything about it is impeccable. Everything
Hmm.
is so organized over there. Transportation, whether you want to take the metro or an Uber, it's just very like straightforward.
Hmm.
And the stadiums as well. Stadiums were top of the line. I went
Hmm.
obviously, the semifinal game was hosted in Lusail, which was where the final was. It's that big
Hmm.
stadium, the one that has like the gold on the outside with like I don't know, like 88,000 capacity. I mean, it's
Yeah,
the most incredible stadium I've ever seen. And
yeah,
here in America, we have these massive stadiums, like some of them 100,000
yeah.
capacity, whatever the case may be. And we have some newer stadiums as well,
Hmm.
but the stadiums that I've been to here in the U.S., whether it be American football stadiums or whatever the case may be, nothing even comes close to like in terms of the structure and just yeah, that stadium just wowed me. Just looking at it, it was just incredible. Like you see it on
Hmm.
TV and you're like, wow, that looks really incredible. Like the architecture and
Yeah.
everything. When you're actually there and you're looking at it, you're like, wow, that's unbelievable. So. Yeah, I thought the country did an amazing job. The country's
Hmm.
also like incredibly safe. Like, I
Hmm.
would, walk around the streets of Doha at night, feeling really safe, feeling really comfortable, never feeling like anyone's gonna bother me or there's gonna be trouble around, whatever the case may be.
Hmm.
As well as I do, that's not really the case everywhere here in the United States,
Yeah.
especially in big cities.
Hmm.
So that's one advantage of Qatar. Like, it's just
Hmm.
like also just a really safe country. You don't have to worry about like a lot of like crimes being committed and violence and whatever the case may be. So that's
Hmm.
another benefit of the World Cup being in Qatar and just the
Yeah.
tournament in general. It was exciting, like everything that
Yeah.
happened. It was just so much surprises. The games were incredible, and the final especially. I mean, it was a phenomenal matchup between two behemoths in the world of football in
Hmm.
France and Argentina. Mbappe versus Messi, and just all those quality players going at it. And the game itself was the best game I've ever seen. Not even just the best
Hmm.
World Cup game I've ever seen, the best game I've ever seen. Like it was just incredible. It had everything you wanted as a football fan. France
Yeah.
going down 2-0, then coming back, then it goes to extra time, and Argentina scores, and then France scores, and then it goes to penalties. Like it was just an
Yeah.
insane game as well. So when you take all that into consideration, yeah, no, I think Qatar did an amazing job with the World Cup. I felt very safe being over there. I felt the people as well were very friendly. It's a very diverse nation. I know I spoke to you about it offline, where
Hmm.
the majority of the people who live in Qatar or are residents of Qatar are not like Qatari citizens, and they're from various different parts of the world. And I was able to meet so many different people from so many different countries in the world, like Pakistan, Nepal, Algeria. List goes on and on. Like I met people that I've never met people from some of those countries like here in the United States or anywhere else I went. So that was
Hmm.
another thing that was amazing about being at the World Cup in Qatar, was that not only was it that it's a diverse nation in terms of the fact that, I mean, at the time it was like you're going to see a diverse set of people there because the World Cup's being hosted there, but even the people, like the residents who live there, it's a very diverse nation. And so when you take into consideration the diversity of the country, just how beautiful the stadiums were, everything was so organized, country was clean, atmosphere was incredible, and the fact that it was an exciting World Cup. Yeah, no,
Hmm.
it was amazing. And my opinion of how Qatar did in terms of hosting the
Hmm.
World Cup, I think they did a phenomenal job. And I don't think there's many people that will deny that they did do a phenomenal job hosting the World Cup. So yeah, I really enjoyed my time there, and I think Qatar uh, did an amazing job. And yeah, I definitely have a positive perception uh, of the country, and I guess their impact on the sport of football, and as well as their job in terms of what they did in the World Cup. Definitely have a very, very positive experience regarding that
I
topic.
think I know, and based off of that, based off of being there, experiencing the culture, experiencing the people, experiencing the atmosphere, um, all of that, and then you take into consideration a massive worldwide tournament that is the World Cup, and to also experience the intensity of the group stages. Like I've never seen the group stages like that. It was like unforeseen on all scales, because you look at teams like Japan and those type of teams coming out of the group stages, and teams like Belgium and Germany going home, and not even making it to the final stages of it. It's something else. So moving on to from the tournaments and stuff like that. So what your dad came out what a couple of days before you guys left for Qatar, and we were speaking outside, and he was like, you guys are gonna head over and whatnot like that. Tell the viewers, what is it like to go through that entire, from purchasing your plane ticket to getting a hotel, because remember, this tiny country, and it's a tiny nation, it has like a population of like 150,000, Qatar, if for the viewers that may not know that. Like I would think that there would be no space available for people flying in, to get in there and try to get a hotel, and try to get seek accommodation. So explain to us, like, what was that process like? Was it a difficult process? Was it quite easy?
Yeah, I mean, that's a good point, because it kind of happened on a whim. Like I wasn't necessarily always planning on going to the World Cup in Qatar. Like it wasn't something I always thought about. Like even like earlier this year, if you asked me like, oh, would you be interested in buying tickets and going? Like I didn't really necessarily really care to go. Like it would have been nice to
Yeah.
go, but I never necessarily
Hmm.
really cared to go. But I think as we got closer to the tournament, and there was all this hype around, the World Cup being in this nation of Qatar, which um, just to point out, that number that you provided is the number of people who are actually like Qatari citizens. But I think residents, if
Hmm.
you add like residents in general, yeah, it's a tiny country. It's like 2.5 million people or something crazy like that. And it's a very small country as well in size too. So for a country like that to be able to host a major tournament, it was just fascinating to think like
Hmm.
like Qatar was going to host it. Because if you look at the previous countries that have hosted it, I mean, Russia, massive country, massive population. Same thing with Brazil, Germany, even
Hmm.
South Africa compared to Qatar. Much bigger population, much larger in size as
Hmm.
well. So, yeah, it was just fascinating to think about it. And I don't know, I was just so hyped for this World Cup because it was just so unique in a sense that it was being hosted in Qatar. And it was history as well. First Middle Eastern country, first Arab country to host the World Cup. Like that was kind
Hmm.
of a big deal for a lot of people. And as we got closer and closer to the World Cup, like I was just like thinking about it, and I was like, it might be nice to go over there and experience like what it's like uh, to be in a country like Qatar during a World Cup, like what that experience would be like. And you know, part of me was like also thinking of it as, and a lot of people in America were thinking about it this way too, like, oh well, in 4 years from now it's going to be in the U.S. You might as well just go to that World Cup. And yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, it's nice that when the World Cup's going to be in your host nation, but I feel like for me, like it's not the same as when you actually go to another country and you
Yeah.
experience the country, the culture, and you're there as a tourist while also experiencing the World Cup. I feel like that's just a whole different experience. And I
Hmm.
thought about it to myself, and I was kind of like, this is kind of like a once in a lifetime experience. And, if I don't go now, the next World Cup's going to be in the US as well as Canada and Mexico, but, it's primarily going to be in the US. Like,
Yeah.
you're not going to have an opportunity like that. So,
Yeah. And
myself,
you're not gonna be able to see certain players anymore, in the likes of, you literally got to see Leo Messi's probably last game for Argentina, you know?
exactly. That's actually another really good point too. I didn't actually think of it that way, like when I was
Hmm.
considering like going to the World Cup in Qatar, but that's a good point. Like, this is gonna be Messi's last tournament, and like I think he's the greatest player of all time. Many people do as well. Like we're talking about a legend of the game who's probably never going to play in another World Cup again. Like, this is your chance to see him play.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, I just got more interested in thinking about like actually going to the tournament in the lead up, but like I didn't actually decide to go to Qatar until this tournament already started. Like the tournament already started, and that's when myself and a couple family members, one of my sisters and my mom, we decided, you know, we're gonna do this. We're actually gonna go to the World Cup in Qatar. Like we said, you know what, let's
Mm-hmm.
do it, because who knows when there's gonna be another opportunity like this. And yeah, it was a struggle to like find like, tickets at like a pretty affordable price for us, and then also like hotels as well.
Mm-hmm.
But we managed to do it at the end of the day. Like I think it's one of those things where you just have to be like really like persistent. You have to be on top of
Mm-hmm.
it, and you have to be quick.
Yeah.
Like you have to really make a decision right away. Like if you really want to go,
Mm-hmm.
you have to be certain. You can't like be on the fence and be like, yeah, well, it'll be nice to go, but I don't know if I want to get that hotel or whatever the case may be, or I'm going to continue to look around and see if I can get a better price. Like if you see a price that sounds somewhat decent to you, whether it be a ticket price, hotel price, like go for it. Just get it. Like don't hesitate in those situations, especially for us where the World Cup already started. And as the World Cup progresses, more and more people are interested in going to the tournament in the latter stages. Like get the ticket, like just go. You know what I'm saying? Like this is
Yeah.
just like
Just
a
do
once in
it.
a lifetime opportunity. And that's how I thought of
Yeah.
it too. I thought of it as like, hey, it'd be really cool to go. It's something, unique. I've always wanted to go
Mm-hmm.
to a competitive soccer game overseas, not
Mm-hmm.
like any of those games that they have here, like those preseason games. Like you watch, I went to that preseason game, the Barcelona, Inter Milan, whatever the kid, not like any of that, like preseason, like, when
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
not the
The
same, like maybe like a
preseason.
proper
Yeah. The
football game.
friendlies.
You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying?
Yeah.
Not
This
those
this
like
was
friendlies.
this was for all the chips. And you're right. I think I agree with you 100%. For life experiences, and that's I don't know if you want to call it trending right now, but people who are really driven, and you're trying to do certain things in life, you really want to really go at it. And this is a once in a lifetime type of experience that you guys went on there, and you behold everything in its truest nature. The tournament, the country, the people, the culture, the food. When the lights come down, when it's nighttime and the stadiums are all lit up, and you hear the crowd cheering, like there's nothing like it. So I mean, hats off to you, hats off to your family members for making that trip over there. So one thing I do want to let the viewers know. So Sammy he he went to the World Cup, but he's also a huge sport fanatic. He's massively into sports, not just football or soccer, the NFL, the NBA, these sports. So, and every time we have conversations, we talk about various topics other than not just the Premier League and stuff like that, but also basketball and sometimes the NFL. Um, so this guy here, his background is in analytics. So he analyzes players. He analyzes their performances from previous seasons to now. So this is someone that has a full understanding of the sport and what it takes for these players to possibly even improve on their game. I see here Judge say, I don't need a hotel, give me a cardboard box. And I agree, bro. Like, listen, you just just get there, throw up a piece of sheet on a line, and you're sleeping in there until the next game. I agree with you, Judge.
100%. Like I probably like I have the same mentality as well. Like it's a World Cup. You know what I'm saying? Just like being there.
Yeah.
Like even if you were one of those people, and I did see people who are like that, who went, they didn't necessarily have a ticket or really like an actual plan, but they kind of were
Mm-hmm.
just going with the flow and hoping for the best.
Yeah.
You can still have an incredible experience just being there and just like kind of immersing yourself in the World Cup experience without actually going to a game. So like I'm a
Mm-hmm.
hundred percent like I agree with that statement
Yeah. Yeah.
for sure, because like
And
I have the same mentality.
I want to believe as well, because you did say that the people there were very warm, very welcoming, and I'm almost certain that there was a few people that were over there that did not get accommodation, but was possibly taken in by a local. and probably had them stay, and I would love to know if, leave a comment down in the comment box if you do catch this. If you don't catch it now, you catch it after. It's always going to be there on YouTube, and then don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. So moving on from, the Qatar experience, and I know you're not a specific fan for a specific football team. Um, but me being an Arsenal fan, I had huge concerns over when this World Cup was happening and the run that we had, pre World Cup. And like injuries, like what happened to Gabriel Jesus. He got injured with this knee injury. He's possibly gonna, return to first team training in 5 weeks. You know, where do you see yourself in terms of a Premier League fan? Like, what do you see yourself as someone who just supports the team that's in good form at the moment, or what type of team do you like to support?
That's a good question. Yeah, to your point, for anyone that doesn't know, I'm not necessarily a fan of any particular team, and I'm one of those fans that, I watch the games midweek, whether it be Champions League games or watch games on the weekend, and I kind of watch whatever game I'm like interested in watching, like whatever looks good to me, and it's not
Mm-hmm.
necessarily like the marquee matchup. Like a lot of times it is, right? So like this weekend, obviously, I watched like Arsenal Man United because that was the marquee matchup in Europe, really, in world football, but it's really just like if there's a team that I hear about, for example, like in the Bundesliga, who's like doing really well, and I hear about it, and I'm like, yeah, you know what? Let me tune in. Let me see exactly like like what this team is all about. Like, how good are they really? Like, I want to actually like watch them play. Like, I kind of just like watch whatever game interests me. Like, I don't necessarily like just always watch a marquee matchup or support a particular team. But I would
Mm-hmm.
say like my answer to your question would be like this season I'm definitely like enjoying watching Arsenal play. Not only because
Mm-hmm.
they're like incredible and they're doing really well, but just their style of play. Just a really good, young, exciting, vibrant team. The way they play football as well, like it's just like really exciting for me. So I've
Mm-hmm.
definitely been tuning into a lot of Arsenal this season. And then also similar in the Serie A with Napoli, like I've been tuning into a lot of their games because they're very similar in terms of the way they play. Like how Arsenal plays. They're very similar as well with their style of play, just free flowing, attacking, exciting football. And the fact that those teams are also unexpectedly in first place in their respective leagues, like that's also
Mm-hmm.
extremely exciting for me as a fan because I'm someone who doesn't necessarily only watch teams based off of their style of play, but also I also
Mm-hmm.
always like to see the underdog do well. And anytime there's an
Yeah.
underdog involved, I'm going to follow that team and a lot of times like temporarily support that team as well because I always like to see those sort of Cinderella stories in football. And I think
Right.
what we're seeing right now with Arsenal being top of the league, Napoli being top of the league, we saw it at the World Cup, for example, like Morocco going to the semifinals. That was a Cinderella story in itself. Like I was 100% behind Morocco, backing Morocco, wanting to watch them play and do
Mm-hmm.
well. And then we can even go back to the past as well with Croatia in the last World Cup in 2018 when
Yeah.
they went away to the finals. I was 100% kind of like really digging Croatia and what they were doing. And then let's go back to the Premier League in 2015, 2016, which was the most
Leicester
incredible thing I've
City.
ever seen in any sport. Like Leicester
Mm-hmm.
City winning the league, like that was incredible. So for me, it's just like, I just love football. Like I'm just really passionate about the sport.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I, I watch the games. I go on websites. I look up statistics and always
Mm-hmm.
reading articles, whatever the case may be. And I'm just a fan. Like I just tune into whatever I find is interesting, and
Mm-hmm.
whatever game is appealing to me. I tune in and I watch it. So that's kind of really the best
Yeah.
way to describe me as a football fan. I just love the game and I just love watching good football.
That's good. I mean, I'm happy to hear that. It's you find you're very like there are very few people that actually just tune in to watch the game versus they need to attach themselves to a team, an outfit, and follow that outfit throughout the different leagues. And as my good friend here Judge is saying, we are the top of the league, we are the top of the league.
Yep.
I'm happy. I'm happy. Now, I did remember when, we were talking preseason before the Prem started, I asked you, what was your prediction? Who do you see, where do they fall? And I distinctly remember hearing you say that, you didn't see Arsenal finishing inside the top four. you
Okay, I
actually
see how
had,
it is, Neely.
you
Yeah,
actually had
you had to
Spurs
put me on
inside of there.
blast, right?
I had to.
You
I
had to put me on the
remember that. I
spot
was like,
here.
yeah, and actually, I just remembered. I was like, wait a minute, this guy told me he didn't see us finishing inside the top four. So, but it goes to show how unpredictable the Premier League is. You know,
Yeah,
like look at the Newcastles, for instance. Who would have thought Newcastle would be as good
absolutely.
as they are, and they're a very, very good team right now.
Yeah,
you know so 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 in terms of for the remainder of the season, we're midway, we're basically at the midpoint of the season.
yeah,
50 points on the table. A
hmm
lot of football still to be played.
yeah,
There's
100%.
tons of it. Then we still have the January transfer window happening right now. Not sure if we're going to do any more signings. We signed a couple players, one of them being, Trossard from Brighton.
Yeah,
I was actually hoping that we go in for Mitoma. I really like that player, but we went in and we got Trossard.
hmm
Um, how do you see him adapting so far, or what do you think he will adapt to as a player with our system and how we play currently?
yeah. First of all, before I get into that, I'll 100% acknowledge that yes, I said that. I'll hold my hand up high. I'll admit that
Yeah.
I was completely wrong. I actually said Arsenal would finish in fifth, just about
Yes.
under Tottenham, which right now it makes me completely wrong at this point. So I'll hold my hand
Yeah.
up there. Be honest. Yeah, I was completely wrong. But hey, that's the beauty of the game. Honestly, that's what I love about the
hmm
game. Like what you said, seeing what Arsenal's doing right now and what Newcastle's doing
hmm
right now. I mean, I love to be proven wrong, and that's like as just a general football fan, that's what excites me is these underdogs, these unexpected events that are happening. It's what I love to see. So
Listen, you have nothing to feel sorry about. There are top pundits. There are a lot of top pundits that are actually that wrote us off. Like, we're gonna fail when we hit this group of matches. We're not gonna make through. A lot of us thought a lot of even I sometimes I thought about it and I was like, God, that's a hard run. And
yeah,
I keep saying, just take it game by game, one game at a time. Like we have this tendency of looking at four or five matches ahead and saying how many points can we grab from that next five. And
yeah,
really and truly, we have to try to just grab the 3 points that's in front of us,
yeah,
and then look on to the next game.
mm,
You know. So, Mikel Arteta, Antonio Conte, looks like he's possibly gonna leave.
yeah,
There's issues down at Everton as well.
yep,
Um, Mikel Arteta was ushered into the Arsenal job when there was the Lampards at Chelsea, I believe, and then there were a couple other like Solskjaer was at United. There were a lot of um, notions that he would have possibly been the first one to get the axe. And lo and behold, with the ownership taking patience with him and sticking with him and giving him the players that he's been asking for, he's now shown a lot of people, a lot of doubters, that he seems to be, because let's not put the cart before the horse here. He seems to be the guy for the job.
yeah, 100%.
So, do you see any of those names like the Lampards or the Contes getting the axe? I mean, it's possible that he leaves at the end of the season, but that's with the risk of Spurs not finishing inside the top four. Do you see Daniel Levy dropping the gauntlet on Antonio Conte?
Yeah, so before I answer that question, I just want to track back because I didn't answer your first question about like Trossard and how I feel about how he'll fit into Arsenal, and then I'll 100% get into that about Antonio Conte and the problems that are going on right now at Tottenham and
Mm-hmm.
whatnot. But first of all, Trossard, I think it's a good signing for Arsenal, and I think Arsenal going for Trossard, going for Kyrior in this transfer window, kind of really shows that they're serious about winning this title. It shows their ambition because
Mm-hmm.
we've seen in the past a lot of times Arsenal they can get a bit complacent in the transfer window. We saw that especially towards the end of Wenger's era. Like people want them to sign players and then they don't go and sign the players that people want. I don't remember exactly what transfer window it was, but I think it was a transfer window where Arsenal got Petr Cech. And I think
Hmm.
like Arsenal was like the only team in Europe's top 5 leagues who didn't sign an outfield player or something crazy like that. And
That's
you
the
remember
15,
those
16 season when Leicester went on to win the title.
exactly, yeah. And you think about that, and you're like compared to where they are now, where they're actually one of the most active teams in the transfer window in Europe's top 5 leagues right now. And I think
Mm.
what they're doing is that they're being smart in who they're signing and addressing their needs. Because I
Hmm.
think what they're thinking about is they're really serious about wanting to win this title. And they want to make sure they have a strong enough team. They want to make sure they have that depth. And that's really what I think they're getting Kirior and Trossard for
Hmm.
is really for that depth in case someone gets injured, or if they want to change something up, they want to bring someone off the bench and change something up. A guy like Trossard, he'd be perfect for that. I believe he came off the bench in the game against United towards the end. And no, I think
Yeah.
it's a good signing. I know they say the price is like 33 million US dollars, which if you compare that to what Tottenham signed Richarlison for, which was an incredible amount, I think it was like double that. And he's not even
Hmm.
a guaranteed starter anyways. Like he's an important figure in that team, but throughout, like we knew that there was going to be competition there with Kulusevski there, with Son there. Like he was never going to be a guaranteed starter. And you look at how much they
Hmm.
spent on him, and what Arsenal, they basically spent half of that on Trossard, who's going to kind of play the same role. It's really
Hmm.
not, I think, a bad price. I think Trossard's worth is probably around that much anyways, like on the market, to be honest. Like I don't
Yeah.
think they overspent on him. So I think it's a smart signing. I think he'll bring incredible like depth to the team. He'll be an incredible option to kind of come off the bench and change the game in the last 15, 20 minutes if need be.
Yeah.
He's a goal scorer. He can create chances. He's versatile as well. Like he can play through the middle if you want him to. He can play out wide, which is like his natural position. And yeah, no, I think he's just going to be another great attacking option. And he's really, I think, there at least to be a guy who can come off the bench and provide depth for Arsenal. Um, Maybe he could provide competition in that left wing spot with Martinelli, but I just think Arsenal, like the way they're playing right now, they're playing with so much fluidity and there's so much chemistry that it's one of those. It's like the saying goes here, like we say here in the United States: if it ain't broke, don't fix it. That's my
Right.
view of Arsenal right now. Like, look, that front line is for me the best front line in the Premier League right now, and you don't want to mess with that, right? So I think right now,
Hmm.
you keep, as long as everyone stays healthy, you keep the same front line. But if you want to bring in Trossard to change the game, or maybe you have a midweek game or Europa League game, whatever the case may be, you play him.
Hmm.
So I think that's I think Trossard's going to be a good addition for Arsenal. Now let's go to the other team in North London that you mentioned, Tottenham, and speak about kind of
Hmm.
the issues that are going on over there. They won their previous game, right, against Fulham. Is that correct? They won like 1-0 this
I
past week.
believe they did. Yeah.
Yeah, but before that, they were really struggling for form. I think since the restart, they've been really struggling. I think they're currently in fifth place in the league at the moment. There's doubts about whether or not they'll make it to the Champions League again, which is kind of like their goal was to at least finish in the Champions League places again. Their goal every year is to try and win a cup trophy as well. Never happens,
Hmm.
but
Yeah.
my opinion on Antonio Conte. Yeah, 100%. I could see him getting sacked by Daniel Levy because if you look at like the recent history of Tottenham, I mean, besides Pochettino, I mean, no one's really stayed there for that long. They're a club that isn't similar to Chelsea. They aren't hesitant to axe their manager. I
Hmm.
could see it happening. Um, and also with Conte, like if you look at his history as well, like I don't deny that he's a phenomenal manager. Like Conte is a top quality manager. Anytime he leads a team, whether it was with the Italian national team, Juventus, like he's a manager that discipline. Chelsea, of course, he's a manager
Hmm.
that instills that discipline in his players. You play for him, you have to run like crazy, you have to work hard, you have to be organized, disciplined, and he's a proven winner. There's no doubt about that. I mean, everywhere he's gone, he's been able to win trophies and at least have some success.
Hmm.
Um, but he's also a manager who doesn't stick around for long. He's
Yeah.
similar to Tuchel in a sense that like he's a brilliant manager, he's a brilliant tactician. Obviously, different type of tactics to Tuchel. He's a lot more pragmatic, defensive minded than Tuchel, but similar type of manager in the sense that he's a brilliant manager, brilliant tactician, but he doesn't tend to stick around a lot because there's always this clash of heads with him and the board. There's always like disagreements, and he is that type of character. He can be I guess difficult to work with. I guess like he doesn't stick around
Yeah.
for long, and there's always like disagreements with him. And you see that with some of those managers where they're brilliant managers, but they're really like short term options. They're not guys that are going to stick around for
Hmm.
5 years or more. And I
Yeah.
think that's really the best way to describe Antonio Conte. And I think considering what's going on with Tottenham and what their ambitions are, I think it's too early to tell, especially since they're still in the Champions League mix. I think, you got to give it some time. You got to see how it plays out. But
Hmm.
100%, I could see him, potentially parting ways with Tottenham at the end of the season, or Daniel Levy deciding to let him go, because we've seen Tottenham do that, in the past with
Before.
Mourinho. Even if you
Hmm.
go back to Andre Villas-Boas a while back, they did that with him too. So I can 100% see it happening. But
Hmm.
I think they need to be a little bit more patient, see how the end of the season goes. But it honestly wouldn't surprise me considering the way Tottenham operates, as well as Antonio Conte and like his track record. Even though I think like even
Hmm.
if he does get sacked by Tottenham, like he'll find another top job because he's just a quality coach. Like even though he's a short term option, he's a quality coach.
Hmm.
I can see it happening because both parties, Daniel Levy is not necessarily always the most patient, and then Antonio Conte also just like he doesn't stick around for long either. And considering some of the issues that they're having at the moment, if it continues to
Hmm.
persist and they miss out on Champions League, I can definitely see it happening.
I think so. I mean, it will be an expensive sack, I
Yeah,
believe. I think it's going to be about 6 million or so. But in terms of getting that new manager bounce, if they do want to get that out of the squad that they have, and let's face it, they don't necessarily have the worst squad right now.
no, not at all.
Um, so it's possible that it could happen and have someone come in and maybe provide that new manager bounce. So, final topic for the evening, and I do appreciate you spending this time with me.
Yeah, of course.
So so January transfer window, we pulled in a couple players so far. I think their sights right now is within the midfield. I see that they're looking at Onana from Everton and Cancelo from Brighton. Um,
Oh,
yeah. So knowing and there are other clubs in for Cancelo. There's Liverpool. There's also Chelsea, and we've seen what Todd Bowley is capable of so far. I don't want to touch too much on it, but that player that happened to go there after expressing all so much that he wanted to be a gunner, but let's move on from that. Do you see, knowing the way that we've been um, we've been aggressive in the window. I like to think that we've been aggressive in the window.
yes.
Maybe to some not aggressive enough, but we also have to protect the financial structure of the club.
Yep.
Not going and overextending ourselves
Mhm.
and not doing too much. Reach hanging our hat where we can't reach it at the end of the day.
Yeah.
Um, Concedo, I see that there's been a bid for about 65 million that was rejected.
Mhm.
We've also had links to Declan Rice, but that's in the summer. So
Yeah.
so there's a lot of links for the midfield, and I think it's important that we really ballista that midfield because Xhaka or Partey goes out, the drop in terms of performance wise, it's going to be a big drop.
Mhm.
You know, with your experience, with your knowledge that you've seen the way we've spent before, where do you see us going? What direction?
The players that you mentioned Caicedo, and who was the other one?
Onana from
Oh, no, no.
Everton?
Okay, yeah. Honestly, I don't
Yeah.
think Arsenal need to spend that much on those players right now. I don't see Onana happening only because Everton just bought him in the summer. I think they bought him from Lille for a decent amount, by the way. And he's been
Hmm.
he's been good. I wouldn't say he's been brilliant considering the price tag, but he's been pretty good, and he's a very physical, defensive-minded midfielder. But I just think for those players as well, like, I mean, I understand, like, if either, Shaka or Partey get injured, there's some concerns there, in terms of depth and who's going to step in. I mean, I guess, you have Vieira, you have Lukonga, and don't get me wrong, those guys aren't at the level of, like, especially not Caicedo, but I don't think they're even at the level of Onana, but they're still good backup options to have for now, I guess. I
Hmm.
truly don't think Arsenal need to go for those guys right now. And in fact, I don't think it would be best for their careers to go as well either, because realistically speaking, like, okay, yeah, if, Partey and Shaka get injured, there's a possibility for them to play regularly. But if they don't, then for a young guy like Onana, who's 21 years old, I mean, yeah, the situation Everton's not the best, but at least he's getting regular playing time and playing
Mm-hmm.
regularly. Of course, if Everton get relegated, it might be different. Like in the summer, he might
Yeah.
leave and they might be forced to sell him. But I don't think it would make sense for him to go there right now, considering where he is in his career, because he won't be guaranteed to play. Because to me, like
Yeah.
even though yeah, he's a talented player, he could certainly get better. Would you really say he's better than Partey right now or Shaka? I wouldn't,
No.
and I wouldn't start him over those guys. Caicedo, same thing, and I think Caicedo's even better than Onana. Slightly different type of player because I think he plays a bit further forward. He's not as defensive minded. He's more of a number 8 than you would say like a number 6. I think Onana is more of
Mm-hmm.
a number 6, like proper Casemiro type of defensive midfielder, just like a disruptor. Whereas Caicedo, he can do the defensive work, but he also gets forward a little bit and he has a bit of that creative ability in his game as well. Much
Mm-hmm.
better technically than Onana as well. Onana technically is not the greatest. Caicedo technically very good. I don't think it would make sense for those guys to move to Arsenal at the moment, and especially with the price tag that you mentioned for Caicedo. I mean, like 65 million at the moment. Like, absolutely not. I wouldn't spend that in January for Caicedo because one, I don't think Arsenal need a player of that caliber to come in. I think what they have already, with the depth and the players that they have, I think they're fine in the midfield. Personally, to me, right now,
Mm-hmm.
and I don't think they need to spend, crazy money on a guy like Caicedo or Onana right now in January. I don't think it's necessary, and I don't think it's best for those guys' careers too. Because I honestly, genuinely think they'll come to Arsenal and they won't necessarily get the regular playing time that they're getting at Everton and Brighton. Um, but the
Mm-hmm.
Declan Rice one, though, I mean, I definitely wouldn't. Again, same thing. I wouldn't spend money on Declan Rice now, like in January. But the Declan Rice one's an interesting situation because West Ham, they're clearly not as good as they've been in previous seasons. He's been loyal enough to the club. Like I 100% thought by now he would have left. Like I thought he would have already gone to either United or
Mm-hmm.
Chelsea, which is I believe his boyhood club where he was there as a youth academy player. Like I was 100% sure he would go to one of those clubs by now. He hasn't. In fact, not only is he still at
Mm-hmm.
West Ham, but he's the captain over there. But I think it might get to a point where, like, I think he's just turned 24. He's getting at that age. He might have already by then, like, realized, like, maybe it's not best for him to stay at West Ham. If the
Yeah.
opportunity arises to sign a
Mm-hmm.
player like Declan Rice in the summer, a
Mm-hmm.
100% I would go for Declan Rice in the summer because I truly believe Declan Rice is better than both Shaka and Partey. The price tag
Mm-hmm.
will be a lot. I think it'll be even higher than Caicedo's, considering the age, his proven Premier League experience, the fact that he's a regular in the English national team. I think you'll have to spend more than you would on a player like Caicedo. But Declan Rice would be worth it in the summer if you can get him 100%. Because Declan Rice, I think, would, even though like I like what Arsenal already have in the midfield duo between Partey and Shaka, Declan Rice would
Mm-hmm.
elevate their midfield. Declan Rice is a better player than those guys. So if the opportunity arises, and I did hear about that rumor in the
Yeah.
summer, I would 100% try to get Declan Rice to bolster for the future because you will have a midfielder that could potentially be at Arsenal for the next 6 to 8 years and play at a top level. Like he's a special player. I'm a huge fan of Declan Rice. Not only can he
Mm-hmm.
play as a defensive midfielder, if you really want him to, he could play as a center back as well. He's got the build
Yeah.
and the capabilities. Declan Rice is something special though. Like he's different from Caicedo and Onana. Like Caicedo and Onana are like good players and they're gonna have good careers. But Declan Rice, like he's already to
Yeah.
me. I don't care what
Next level.
yeah, I don't care what people say. Like, yeah, he plays at West Ham, but for me, he's already probably one of the best defensive midfielders in Europe, not just in the Premier League, in Europe. And he's 24 too. Like, he's going to continue to get better, gain more knowledge, gain more experience and understanding of the game. You got a special player there if you can get Declan Rice. So for Declan Rice, I
I
wouldn't get him
mean,
now, but in June, I would consider getting him or July. Yeah.
yeah. I mean, I see. I mean, not ruling Chelsea out, but I see maybe as well as United, but I see City as being um our main challengers to for his signature. Because if you look at City's midfield, this season it has looked quite shaky. You add a Declan Rice in there, it kind of steady things up. So tell me something then. So in your opinion, if we were to go sign someone and you had to come in and say, okay, Edu calls you, Sammy, and says, Sammy, who should we go for? Who do you think we should sign in for our midfield right now?
Like, if you had to sign someone in January,
And you're making the call. Edu calls you and he says, Sammy, who do we sign? Who do we go after? Who's the name? What's the name that you're gonna give?
I mean, if you have to sign a midfielder, like for me, I would honestly,
Hmm
my answer would be like, I don't think you need one. But let's say let's say the situation is you have to
You
sign
need,
somebody.
yeah, you have to give a name.
I mean, again, like it would be easy for me to just say Declan Rice because of everything that I just said about him, and I bigged
Hmm
him up, I complimented him and whatnot. But I would be hesitant to say Declan Rice because, again, like you would have to spend a lot of money to get him, and again, I just don't think Arsenal need to spend crazy amounts of money, especially in January, to sign a player. It's tough
Okay,
because
let me give you a budget then. Let me give you a budget. I'm gonna give you a budget.
yeah,
Again, Edu calls you and he says, Sammy, we need to buy someone to help our midfield in case Partey or Xhaka gets injured. We have a budget of 45 million. We cannot exceed that. 45 million pounds. We cannot exceed that. Who do we sign?
you know what? I'm thinking of player because I'm trying to think of players like off the top of my head who I think would be good for like Arsenal at this moment in time and would be willing to kind of play a role like as a rotational player, but not a guaranteed
Hmm
starter, but maybe the possibility of becoming a starter, depending on like whether or not Shaka or Partey get injured, whatever the case may be. I'm gonna give you two players that are from the same club that I highly rate that are central midfielders. One of them
Okay.
is not really realistic because he's been there forever, and I just don't see him leaving there anytime soon. But I really rate James Ward-Prowse. James Ward-Prowse is a baller. James
Okay.
Ward-Prowse, I'm telling you right now,
Okay.
he's one of the best midfielders in the Premier League. He's one of the most underrated players in the Premier League, in my opinion. He's been good for years. And again, the reason why I say it's
hmm
unrealistic because like he's been at Southampton forever. Although they might get relegated this year, so that could be different. Maybe he might decide to bounce, but
hmm
he's been at Southampton forever. But I mean, that would be a guy I think, like Arsenal, like it would be a blessing to have a player like that, especially like as a rotational player.
Dead ball
Because he's just
specialist as well.
yeah, because he's a dead ball specialist, very intelligent, neat and tidy in possession. Not that bad off the ball either. I think that's like an underrated part of his game too. But he's more known for what he does like on the ball. Like he's just very accurate passer of the ball, creative, can score goals, all that stuff. So I really like James Ward-Prowse, and historically speaking, it would have been unrealistic simply because he's just been at Southampton forever and has just been loyal to the club. But considering they're getting relegated potentially soon,
Hmm
it's more of a possibility than it used to be, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
And then I'm going to mention another player at his club who I highly rate. I think he just went there on loan. He was at Manchester City. I believe he's on loan. I might be wrong there, but Romeo Lavia is a
Okay.
special young talent. I think he's 18 years old. He's Belgian. I think he can play a similar role to what Vieira and Lokonga are doing, but I think he's even better than Vieira and Lokonga. I think Romeo
Okay.
Lavia, like seeing him play and also just like, looking at his statistics online, whatever the case may be, that
hmm
guy's a huge talent. He's very good on the ball, very comfortable, and he plays with so much confidence at such a young age. He would
hmm
also be a player I would consider like bringing to Arsenal, kind of like in a kind of rotational setup, I guess. And again, another guy who I don't know if he will be willing to stay with Southampton if they go to the Championship. Maybe he would because he's like young, he's a teenager, so he just wants experience, wants to play. But I know he missed some time with injury earlier this season, but from what I've seen from him, he's a special talent. So again, there's probably so many other guys I'd have to really think about it because like you asked me, so like it's like I have to think and really strategize. But those are
hmm
guys that come off the top of my head that I think like midfielders. If I were to sign them in January,
hmm
those would be guys that I would sign because they're cheaper options than someone like a Declan Rice. And I'm not a fan of
hmm
spending like crazy amounts of money in January, especially considering the situation Arsenal's in. Like they're not desperate like Chelsea is at the moment, or like Liverpool, who are like they're doing everything they can to get back into Europe.
Yeah.
Arsenal's in a really good position. I like the team that they have, and I just don't think they need to spend crazy amount of money, and they should focus more on just trying to build up their depth and whatever the case may be. And those are guys that could provide really good depth and quality to the team. So off the top of my head, two guys from the same club that I think would be great players for Arsenal at this time.
All you guys, you heard it here first. If Sammy gets the call from Edu, those are the two names. So, uh, I think that's it for me today. I don't think I have anything penciled in here for you, Sammy, but I do appreciate you taking the time to come on and be on the Bench Homers podcast here today. If anyone here that wants to find you, where can they find you?
Yeah. My Instagram is abuzs25. So ABUZS25.
Hmm.
That would be the best place to find me. So
And you guys can find that in the description below. So, folks, this was nice. This was the Benchwarmers podcast, episode 2 for 2023, and see you guys soon. Take care.
yep. Take
Bye.
care. Thank you for having me, Neil. I appreciate it, man.
No problem, man. Anytime. We'll have you back on soon. Don't worry.
Yeah, definitely, man. I would love that. Thank you.
All right. Take care.
Take care.